Craters of the Moon. That's an interesting name. If you were going through a list of national parks and monuments, that one kind of sticks out. Could you tell me where the name Craters of the Moon comes from?
That name came from the fact that it's such a stark, barren landscape that when people first saw the landscape here, they assumed that that must be what the moon looks like. Of course, nobody had been up there yet, and when the astronauts did go in 1969, they discovered that it looked a little bit different from down here on Earth, but it's the same type of rock that the astronauts were walking on, but a much younger landscape than the billion-year-old lunar surface.
And so we actually had astronauts that came here at one point. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And we just celebrated 50 years since they arrived on the moon and also here at Craters of the Moon. So we had a group of astronauts that came out here back in 1969. They were the third group of astronauts that landed on the lunar surface, and they came out here to learn a little bit about geology because these guys were rocket scientists and test pilots and such. They didn't know anything about rocks. So the scientists at NASA thought this would be a great opportunity for them to learn about geology before they went up to the moon because they had limited payload, and they wanted to make sure they picked out some really good specimens to bring back to Earth.
Was that our last contact with NASA? Have they been back since, or was 1969 the last time they were here?
No, we've had ongoing relationships with NASA. They've had scientists out here pretty much on an annual basis ever since. Most recently, they had 2 different deployments of world-famous scientists who came out here, and they utilized the landscape as an analog for some of the things that they're seeing on Mars, on the lunar surface, and on near-Earth asteroids and other planetary bodies like that. Of course, research here in Idaho is a lot more efficient and less expensive than going off to Mars. So they were practicing some of the techniques they'll use to communicate with astronauts out in the field. Also looking at some of the really interesting minerals that we have here that, by the way, they're also finding on Mars. Oh. And trying to determine if perhaps some of those minerals that we have are created by little microbes that might potentially exist on Mars as well.